Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about something that I'm seeing in the sky that I think you got to be made aware of. And that is an aspect that hits dead on. It will be January 3rd. And it is so intense that I wanted to make a video just explicitly on what I see this aspect could mean for us as a humanity, because it is such a powerful, big deal. So before I continue on, I want to remind everyone to sign up for my free newsletter, get all of my predictions delivered to your email address absolutely free every week. Go to galacticcenter.org, and once you're there and you sign up for my free newsletter, take note of my Patreon page. If you want to become part of our community, and you will get so many opportunities through the Patreon page, you don't want to miss it, especially for the new year. I have live classes, you get my magazine, you get my Muhurta, which is daily aspects written out, what days are good for everything. You even get the opportunity to win a free reading with me. So go to galacticcenter.org. And another thing that's coming up that's a huge big deal is I'm starting semester 1 with the University of Vedic Astrology again. This will start the first week of February. You don't want to miss this. You will learn Vedic astrology, and this is my community of astrologers around the world. It is the best way to learn astrology. You get a tutor, you get a community. I teach live classes every week, plus you have videos. You will learn and you will be supported. So go to universityofvedicastrology.com. Last but not least, I've got to tell you about my galactic planner. This is the most exciting thing that I've devised lately. It takes your chart, calculates your Vedic chart, gives you all of your predictions every day in plain English. You don't need to know astrology, and it delivers it into your calendar, in your phone or your computer. You will have the guidance of the stars every day with this. Go to galacticplanner.com. Now, here is what I want to tell everyone about with what is going on January 3rd. So this is not necessarily that something giant has to happen on this day. But this aspect is in orb for a long time, actually the last week of December, first week of January, and probably the first 2 weeks of January. So this covers the time that Pluto and Mercury are going to be in opposition. Now, the exact day of opposition is January 3rd. And sometimes when things are in orb, they don't happen on the exact day. But I can tell you this, even if there is not an explosive event, I'm telling you something big is happening. Might be behind the scenes, but it will show up. We will know. Okay? So let me explain why I think this is such a big deal. Because in reality, Mars and Pluto will oppose each other once every 2 years. A little over 2 years, but around that time, because Pluto moves so slow and Mars goes through the whole zodiac once every 2 years. We don't have an explosive event happen, let's face it, every 2.5 years. But here's the deal with this one. Why I think this is different is, number one, Mars is retrograde. Number two, Mars is in a volatile sign. It's in its sign of debilitation. Okay, so being retrograde, Mars deals with anger and violence, it's energy, it's sports. It rules blood flow, but it's also very dangerous because it deals with anger. And it deals with war, by the way. So when you put Mars in its sign of debilitation, it means it's not functioning properly. And many times, people that do have Mars, by the way, retrograde in their chart, they have issues where they cannot express their anger right. Their anger is somehow suppressed, or it's not suppressed. They feel it, but they push it down and they hope that it'll go away. And it never does. It actually affects them in ways that can deal with disease, for that matter. You know, if you're not attesting to your emotional body and not expressing it and pushing it away, it doesn't go away. And what happens to people that suppress their anger time after time, year after year, or month after month, it explodes at some point. It has to. And then it is very dysfunctional. So my whole point with this, with Mars being retrograde, debilitated means it's dysfunctional when it's in a debilitation sign. The anger is being suppressed. But that means it's going to blow up at some point. When Pluto comes to this opposition of this dysfunctional, debilitated retrograde Mars, it could cause some explosive event emotionally. But I know it's been pushed down, and it's being pushed down for a while, so it may be a little delayed for the emotional event to occur out of this. But there's other reasons. Like I said, this does happen once every 2 years. And yes, Mars has been debilitated, retrograde. A lot of this is not totally rare. But let me tell you what is. On this day, Rahu and Ketu sit the same degree as the Mars-Pluto. So Mars-Pluto sit exactly opposed to each other, 6 degrees. And of course, let me remind everyone, I am a Vedic astrologer. That means I have different degree markings than the tropical Western. But I will tell you this, the aspects are the same. So even in Western astrology, Pluto and Mars are opposed to each other on January 3rd, that day as well. It's just that they're in a different sign and a different degree, but they're in opposition on that day. So they're in opposition, but as I said, Rahu in Ketu, so they're 6 degrees. Mars is 6 degrees Cancer, Pluto is 6 degrees of Capricorn. And another thing that's coming about that's relative, that's going to be enormous, is that around Inauguration Day, they're still pretty much opposed to each other, but the sun comes into play with this as well. So the sun on Inauguration Day for the United States, by the way, it's always January 20th at around noontime, which is so uncanny because the sun is always going to be in the 10th house of that chart if you set it for noon. In Capricorn, the 10th house is the house of government, and the sun is presidents and leaders. But what's so interesting is that Pluto is right there on the sun on Inauguration Day. Isn't that weird? Pluto is major change and transformation. Pluto, let me just say this. Pluto moves really slow. It takes like, gosh, I forgot how many years to go all the way through all 12 signs of the zodiac. I think 244 years. Give or take a year, maybe 245, but regardless, Pluto in the chart that I use for the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which I believe is a birth chart of the United States, July 4th, 1776. This is the birth chart. I know people have other charts. This one works. I don't care about all those other charts. This one works. I've used it for years. Okay? Everybody always comes back with another chart. But this one absolutely works. Pluto and 1776, I don't care what chart you use, you're probably using around that year. This is where Pluto is around 6-7 degrees of Capricorn in that chart in 1776. Guess where Pluto is right now? 6-7 degrees of Capricorn. So Pluto has returned to its natal position in the chart for the signing of the Declaration of Independence. What the heck is a Pluto return? Everyone talks about Saturn return like it's a big deal. It is a big deal, but Saturn returns are not as big of a deal as you think, because everyone goes through them at the same time of life. It simply is that Saturn takes 28 to 30 years to go through all signs of the zodiac, so it just comes back to where it was when you were born. It is not a bad, horrible thing like people think. But I'll tell you what is sati sati. Okay, but sati sati is when Saturn comes to the moon. People get that confused. Sati sati and Saturn return are different. Okay, but that's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about the fact that when a planet comes back to where it was when you were born, it's a return. And what it does, whether you're talking about any planet's return, what it actually does is it brings back the essence of what that planet means in your chart, what it's all about. So it's a return to be reminded of what that planet means, what house it's in, what house it rules, what that planet is in your chart. When that planet comes back in transit to its natal position, it reminds you of the purpose that planet serves in your life. Therefore, in the chart for the United States, Pluto returning to where it was when it was founded, the USA, it means that there is a transformational change. That Pluto means transformation. As a matter of fact, it is giant transformation. Pluto deals with the underworld, with death, with atomic nuclear energy. When it was discovered, Pluto discovered, that's when we came into nuclear energy. And it deals with control and power, big power. So Pluto returned, coming back. It reminds everyone of the basis of what the United States was founded on, what its transformational purpose is. So Pluto's come back to this point with the sun, and Mars is opposing it. Do you realize how different this is with Pluto being there on the sun? And this is right around the time of, it's so uncanny, of the inauguration of Donald Trump. It's so weird. Anyway, the other aspect that makes this different and so specific, and I gotta say, rules destiny of this world, is the fact that Rahu and Ketu will be aspecting the Pluto, the Mars-Pluto. So what does this mean? So we're going to have Rahu at 6 degrees of Pisces. And of course, Ketu is always exactly opposite. Rahu and Ketu, Rahu is the north node of the moon, Ketu is the south node of the moon. They represent fate and destiny in a chart. And it is unbelievable that they're going to be the same degree as Pluto and Mars. 6 degrees, so Rahu sits at 6 degrees of Pisces, and Mars sits at 6 degrees of Cancer. They're in a trinal aspect. Whenever you have planets of the same element, they're in a trine. And a trine connects planets as though they are one. As a matter of fact, those of you that know Vedic astrology, you will know that when a planet is in an exact trine position in the birth chart, they're always conjunct in the Navamsha. But I know that went over a lot of people's heads here, so I'm trying to make this understandable for everyone. And looking at this is what I'm finding. So Rahu's aspecting fully, completely as one Mars. So Mars, Rahu, wow, is that intense. Mars being anger, war, conflict, weapons, and Rahu's aspecting it, this magnifies it all the more. Plus we got Pluto magnifying Mars, which is explosive. Do you know that they say that Pluto is the higher octave of Mars? They have the same sense of power, deal with similar things. Okay, so remember K2 was the south node of the moon, sits at 6 degrees of Virgo, right? Opposed Rahu. So if you look at Pluto, Pluto sits at 6 degrees of Capricorn. They're both Earth. They're in a trinal aspect. So here's the deal. Rahu is aspecting Mars and K2 is aspecting Pluto, while the Mars and Pluto are opposed to each other. Do you get my drift with this? That this is unbelievable. This all happens on January 3rd. Now, like I said, they are kind of in orb, where they're not exactly to the minute, days before and days after this. But I want you to realize this means something tremendous is happening that concerns a fate and a destiny in this world. Something's shifted, something's changed. It's a major transformational time. And with Mars, the energy is there, but it's been repressed. So something is coming out with an enormous focus of energy around this time. Now, I actually started looking at this months ago, and I noticed that around December 24th, going all the way to January 3rd, we have some major lineups here. And I also want to say that on January 3rd, there's another aspect that's actually happening on that day. But these lineups have been happening for the last week of December all the way into around the second week of January to the inauguration time. So I'm going to say the last week of December to inauguration time, something huge of a destiny will happen. Now, notice, you can't see the chart, but if you could, the moon is on that day going to be, when I pulled up this chart, 6 degrees of Aquarius. Now, Mars sits at 6 degrees of Cancer. So Mars is, those of you who can follow me, Mars is actually in a quincunx to the moon and Venus. Venus sits at 6 degrees of Aquarius on that day. So this quincunx is an 8-6 relationship with the moon Venus. This means this is even more. So when events happen, I must say this, you will see a lot of transits happening at the same time. A whole lot of transits happening at the same time. And this day is uncanny. The fact that you have Rahu, Ketu, 6 degrees of Pisces, Virgo. You have Pluto, Mars at 6 degrees, Cancer, Capricorn. And you have Venus, and the time I pulled this chart up was actually 10 o'clock my time, 10 a.m. in Dallas, Texas. You have the moon and Venus at 6 degrees of Aquarius, which means that's a quincunx. And I find it uncanny that I just pulled up this chart to have reference to it. I find it really weird that the moon, when I pulled it up, was 6 degrees. It's almost like an omen saying, look out, something's about to happen around this day. So I feel like it is my duty to warn everyone. Now, what can you do about this? Don't go to crowded places. Stay home if you can. Just rest. You'll be okay. Focus in on your spirit. Know that you'll be divinely protected. Ask that you will, and you will. And furthermore, not that I'm putting an ad out for my galactic planner, but it'd be really good for you to know where all the planets are on that day for your personal chart so that you will know what to avoid. But lay low around this time. It is not a time to be going to massive events with people. Just, you know, it's a very intense time. Something's due to happen, and it may be a huge undercurrent, but it's happening. Whether it's an external event happening, there's an internal plan of something. If something external doesn't happen, there's an internal plan of something really big being planned and brewed underneath the surface. This is a crazy day of aspects and intense, powerful, transformational energy. And yeah, this will change the world. It is changing. Eventually, I think it's changing it for something better. Most of the time, we can't understand what's happening and why. And sometimes destruction has to happen to clear the way. So I believe something big is transforming the world. Hindsight is 20/20. Once we're out on the other side, looking back, we'll understand it a lot better. But at least I can see it's coming. And that's what you need to know. And that's the beauty of astrology, to give us guidance in these times that we need to be aware. Yeah, we're going to have better times. There's going to be times that we can celebrate, have fun, but this is a time to lay low and be cautious and be careful and be into your spirit and connect to your spiritual soul and spirit within, and you'll be protected and you'll be fine. So with that, I just needed to come out with what I'm seeing in the sky. And for those astrology enthusiasts, you could probably follow me. Just pull up that day of the transits. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's intense. And for those of you that get my newsletter, I'll put this chart in there for you to be able to see it and follow it. So, and I do already. I put the new moon and the full moon chart in my newsletter. So sign up for my free newsletter. You'll get the chart. As well as, don't forget all the other things, the Galactic Planner and Patreon, and don't forget my university. So all those things are at your disposal. Take advantage of it. Make 2025 the year of transformational change in your life. Thank you.